Tonight, I want to give an exposition of James 3:13 through 18. And you know, there are a lot of preachers out there, there used to be more, they only preached by exposition. They wouldn't do topical that much. They wanted to preach by exposition. So if they wanted to preach about faith, they found a passage about faith and they exposited on that passage. Have you ever thought about the word exposition? It's got to be related to what other word? Exposed. So what did they do? They took that passage and they exposed what it had to say. And so tonight, I got this outline from Brother R.C. White's book, and he usually does topical, but this is pretty much an exposition of James 3:13 through 18. So I hope you have your Bible with you. We're going to do a lot of reading tonight and talk about wisdom, true and false. Wisdom, true and false. Who is wise and understanding among you? By his good conduct, let him show his works in the meekness of wisdom. But if you have bitter jealousy and selfish ambition in your hearts, do not boast and be false to the truth. This is not the wisdom that comes down from above, but is earthly, unspiritual, demonic. For where jealousy and selfish ambition exist, there will be disorder in every vile practice. But the wisdom from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, open to reason, full of mercy and good fruits, impartial and sincere, and a harvest of righteousness is sown in peace by those who make peace. So if we want to get a definition of wisdom, the first place not to go is where? The American Heritage Dictionary. Don't go there. Find yourself a dictionary of Bible words. Maybe Vine's. Vine's Expository Dictionary of Bible Words. And we'll look up what Mr. Vine's has to say about wisdom. And he says two things. He says, wisdom is the insight into the true nature of things, and it is the ability to discern modes of action with a view to their results. So we want to consider that definition of wisdom when we talk about our subject, wisdom, true and false. Because there is true wisdom and there is wisdom that is false. We'll talk about that later. As a matter of fact, later has already got here because that's the next thing I want to talk about. Didn't take long for later to get here. One can be wise and yet be evil. Here's the big example, Luke 16, this parable, verses 1 through 8. He also said to his disciples, that is Jesus, there was a rich man who had a manager. And charges were brought to him that this man was wasting his possessions. And he called him and said to him, what is this I hear about you? Turn in the account of your management, for you can no longer be a manager. And the manager said to him, what shall I do since my master is taking the management away from me? I'm not strong enough to dig, and I'm ashamed to beg. I've decided what to do, so that when I am removed from management, people may receive me into their houses. So summoning his master's debtors one by one, he said to the first, how much do you owe my master? He said, 100 measures of oil. He said to him, take your bill and sit down quickly and write 50. Then he said to another, and how much do you owe? And he said, 100 measures of wheat. He said to him, take your bill and write 80. The master commended the dishonest manager for his shrewdness, or you could say for his wisdom, or you could say for his evil wisdom. For the sons of this world are more shrewd in dealing with their own generation than the sons of light. So here is a man who used his wisdom for the wrong purpose, to cheat his master. Well, we can think of where this kind of wisdom came from in the first place. It came from the devil. When we think about how he tricked Eve, he did it in a wise but evil way. So, there are two sources of wisdom then. This passage tells us there are. There is human wisdom, which comes from the devil, and there is divine wisdom, which comes to us from God. So here's what we want to discuss. We want to discuss wisdom from below, as James called it in his passage, and we want to talk about wisdom from above. Then we want to have some concluding remarks, and then I'm going to carefully climb down from the pulpit. For those of you that know that story, I'm going to be careful. So we've already read James 3:13 through 18, and we see that James says that this wisdom from below is earthly. Its standards and sources come from not God, from somewhere else. They come from people that live here on this earth. And this is the kind of wisdom that measures success in worldly terms. And its aims are worldly aims. This wisdom is not spiritual. It's unspiritual. It's really no better than the wisdom that is possessed by animals, the instincts of animals. So it's instinctive, but it's not instinctive in a godly way. It is a wisdom that only looks out for worldly survival. James says it's demonic, and we've already pretty much said that as well. Its source is the devil, certainly not God. It produces results that will delight somebody, and that somebody is the devil. One translation said it's confusing. It's confusing. In its arrogance, it causes disorder. It drives people apart. It causes confusion and it causes strife. Well, that leads to number 5. It spawns every evil work. Barclay said this in his commentary on James. It uses the skill of wisdom to cause trouble and disturb personal relationships. I don't know what y'all got in trouble for when you were a kid, but I'll tell you, I got in trouble for stirring stuff up. And you don't have to be that much smarter than the rest of them in your group. You just got to be just a little bit smarter. And then you can stir stuff up, and not in a good way. And I've lost friendship over that. I've lost respect over stirring stuff up when I was a kid. That was some earthly wisdom I was using. Finally, well, number 6 anyway, the wisdom from below is foolishness in God's eyes. In 1 Corinthians 3:19 through 21, for the wisdom of this world is folly with God. For it is written, he catches the wise in their craftiness. And again, the Lord knows the thoughts of the wise, and they are futile. So let no one boast in men. In Jesus' parable, did you notice that the shrewd manager didn't get away with it? He got caught, didn't he? The master caught him and fired him. So his wisdom only took him so far. So that's wisdom from below. Earthly, unspiritual, demonic, confusing, spawns evil works. It's foolishness in God's eyes. Well, let's talk about good wisdom. Wisdom from above. Wisdom from above is pure. While worldly wisdom might wish to escape God's sight, it may want to practice in the dark. True wisdom is pure and able to withstand the scrutiny of God. 1 Timothy 4:12, as Paul writes to the young preacher Timothy and instructs him how to conduct himself among the children of God, command and teach these things. Let no one despise you for your youth, but set the believers an example in speech, in conduct, in love, in faith, in purity. And then further on in 1 Timothy chapter 5, verses 1 and 2, do not rebuke an older man, but encourage him as you would a father. Encourage younger men as brothers. Encourage the older women as mothers, the younger women as sisters, and do it how? In all purity. Wisdom from above is pure, but it's also peaceable. A right relationship between man and God, and a right relationship between man and man. An arrogant, cruel, or depraved wisdom is incapable of establishing and maintaining these relationships. In Romans 12, verse 18, Paul said, if possible, so far as it depends on you, live peaceably with all. And then further on in chapter 14, verse 19, he said, so then let us pursue what makes for peace and what makes for mutual upbuilding, or the word we sometimes use, mutual edification. Wisdom from above is the kind of wisdom that helps each other build each other up, not tear each other down. It's peaceable. It's gentle. One translation of this word is considerate. It's considerate. This wisdom knows when to forgive. It knows when to make allowances. It knows when to give up its own personal rights. And it knows how to temper justice with mercy. In his commentary, Matthew Arnold called this characteristic of godly wisdom sweet reasonableness. That's gentleness. Sweet reasonableness. I can't improve on that. 1 Thessalonians 5, 11 through 13, Paul writing to the church at Thessalonica, therefore, encourage one another and build one another up, just as you're doing. We ask you, brothers, to respect those who labor among you and are over you in the Lord and admonish you, and to esteem them very highly in love because of their work. Wisdom from above, then, is considerate, and it's reasonable, and it's sweet. Wisdom from above is not self-willed. It's easy to be entreated. It's not stubborn. As we say, it's not self-willed. True wisdom is not rigid, but it's willing to listen. And it's skilled in knowing when to yield. Wisdom from above is full of mercy and good fruits. Christians sometimes have to extend their pity to a person in trouble, even if the trouble is caused by that person. That's a little hard, isn't it? The easy pity is somebody got in trouble over no fault of their own. Oh, well, yes, we pity you. We're going to help you out. Whatever you need, we're going to help you. You got yourself in a situation that you have no control over. That sounds like good people in the world. But a Christian has to consider that some people get themselves in trouble all by themselves. And it's nobody's fault but their own. And yet, if we're Christians, we've got to reach out to these people and see if we can't somehow help them. Might have to give them a good talking to. Probably need to. Quote a couple of scriptures. If they got a good heart, they might respond to that. Philippians 1, 9 through 11, and I could read further, but I won't. And it is my prayer that your love may abound. How does you need it to abound, Paul? Just like it's going? Is it doing fine? Is our love doing fine? No, he says. Now remember, who is he writing to? As far as we can tell from the New Testament, the best church there was. Anyway, their letter had the least amount of negativity to it. But he said, so that your love may abound more and more with knowledge and all discernment, so that you may approve what is excellent, and so be pure and blameless for the day of Christ, filled with the fruit of righteousness that comes through Jesus Christ to the glory and praise of God. We can never say we have truly godly pitied someone unless we have extended them our helping hand. They might not accept it, but have we extended it? Wisdom from above is full of mercy and good fruits. Wisdom from above is without partiality. This word means undivided. It can also mean unwavering. True wisdom is willing to make up its mind and take a stand. Often, what people mean when they say they have an open mind is that they're unwilling to make a decision. I'm open-minded about that. Really? Okay. So you're not going to make a decision? There's some things you don't really need to make a decision about. But when it comes to scriptural, spiritual things, there's a decision to make every day. True wisdom will take sides. And true wisdom will take sides based strictly on God's Word. Let's go back to 1 Timothy again. This time, chapter 5, 21 and 22. In the presence of God and of Jesus Christ and of the elect angels. Talk about a vow. We talked about vows this morning. Paul's making a vow right here. In the presence of God and Christ Jesus, elect angels, I charge you to keep these rules without prejudging, doing nothing from partiality. Do not be hasty in the laying on of hands, nor take part in the sins of others. Keep yourself pure, which takes us right back to number 1, pure, which he'd already mentioned in this letter to Timothy in chapter 4 and in the early part of chapter 5. Wisdom from above is without hypocrisy. True wisdom does not deal in deception. It never acts a part to gain its own end. In Romans 12, verse 9, let love be genuine. Abhor what is evil and hold fast to that which is good. Now, if we wanted a non-example, because I don't know how many teaching in-services you guys have been to in your life, but I've been to loads of them. And they always tell you that you can teach using an example, but you can also teach using a non-example. So a non-example of true wisdom from above is the wisdom that belonged to, in the time of Jesus, the scribes and the Pharisees. They were not using wisdom from above. Did they have wisdom? Jesus said they did. He said, listen to what they're saying. They know what they're saying. They're saying the right thing. But are they doing the right thing? They absolutely are not. In closing, now don't be fooled by that. I probably shouldn't even put in closing there. Because right away you think, oh, about another 1 or 2 minutes and we're out of here. One time when I was a kid, Brother Frost was our preacher, Jerry Frost, and he got up and he preached for about 35 minutes, 40 minutes. And then he looked up and he said, and that's my introduction. And then he preached about 3 or 4 more minutes and he quit. But, so, this is my conclusion. The harvest of righteousness is sown in peace by those who make peace. That's what James says in chapter 3, verse 18 from the RSV. Nothing good will ever grow out of an atmosphere where men are at odds with each other, much less at odds with God. The seeds of righteousness will not take root in the barren soil of bitterness and strife. It's not where it's going to take root. Excluding Jesus, who was the wisest man that ever lived? Yeah. And by the time he was done, what kind of wisdom was he using? True or false wisdom? Even a wise man like Solomon could use his wisdom for evil. What was all that marrying about? A lot of times people say, well, he had a sensual appetite that he could not slake. No, it was all about politics. He was marrying a princess from here and a queen from there and another princess from over there. And he was making all these deals, political deals, for power. And by the time it was all over with, his wisdom had changed from saving the baby kind of wisdom to listening to his wives beg him to raise up idols in the land of Israel. Matthew 10:16, behold, I am sending you out as a sheep in the midst of wolves. So be wise as serpents and innocent as doves. And then in Luke 16:8, remember what the master did? He commended the dishonest manager for his shrewdness. And then he said this, for the sons of this world are more shrewd in dealing with their own generation than the sons of light. Once we understand what good wisdom involves, we must apply it. Also in James chapter 2, 14 through 17, what good is it, my brothers, if someone says he has faith, but does not have works? Can faith save him? If a brother or sister is poorly clothed and lacking in daily food, and one of you says to them, go in peace, be warmed and filled, without giving them the things needed for the body, what good is that? Now see, that's a rhetorical question, isn't it? Because the answer is, it's not good at all. It's not good for anybody. It's not good for the person that needs to be warmed and filled, and it's not good for the person who thought they could just say, go in peace, be warmed and filled. So also, faith by itself, if it does not have works, is dead. Step one in applying wisdom from above is to follow the wisest man who ever walked on this earth. And that man is not Solomon. That man is Jesus Christ.